Everything is for the mission.
It's Decoding TV. I'm David Chen here with Patrick Klepek. Today on the show, we are going to be discussing the big thing that happens at the end of Sugar on Apple TV Plus, episode 6. So you should know that there's going to be spoilers for Sugar through the end of episode 6. By the time you're listening to this, more episodes of the show will be out, but we won't be spoiling those. Although I have seen all the episodes of Sugar, I'll be talking generally about my thoughts on the whole show. We thought this was a good time to talk about this episode because it just aired. So let's get into it. Sugar on Apple TV Plus revolves around a private detective in Los Angeles named John Sugar, played by Colin Farrell, who's investigating the disappearance of Olivia, the granddaughter of a legendary film producer named Jonathan Siegel. Throughout the series, it becomes clear that John Sugar loves two things: helping people and also classic black and white movies, footage of which is intercut with actual events from the series. He's also part of a mysterious organization that seems to be made up of attractive socialites who all know how to speak different languages. Episode 6 reveal happens and recontextualizes what happens in the show. So we're going to spoil it from this point forward. Now, Patrick Klepek has not watched the show. He has only watched episode 6. I have watched the entire show. So Patrick Klepek, I'm curious, the big thing, and we've been hearing for weeks, by the way, that something big happens at the end of episode 6. I was talking to my wife. I was like, hey, I heard about this big twist. She actually knew about it before it happened, because if you Google the show, that's what comes up now, right? Is like, what the twist is.
Yeah.
All that said, Patrick Klepek, the twist happens at the end of episode 6, like the very final few seconds. So I'm curious, until that point, what did you think of Sugar on Apple TV Plus?
Well, I back up a little bit, which is to say, we had considered watching this show as a part of this podcast. And so then when the original reviews came out, I was kind of perusing through them, and a number of them pointed to, hey, this show's about a thing, and then a thing happens. And the reviews seem to be mixed on whether should that thing have happened earlier so it could shade the entire show, or does the thing work on its own and it's actually kind of audacious and interesting that it keeps it all the way to the end. We decided not to pursue covering it on Decoding TV, but I've been waiting to find out personally, should I watch this show, go back based on the reaction to this twist. And I think there was as we increasingly got closer to it, you and I were just more and more curious about the twist itself, the nature of it. How does that fit into what otherwise seems to be a fairly straightforward noir thriller,
noir, like a noir story, right? It's very, very standard noir,
right?
With some interesting directorial touches, but
right. And so then I get into it, just watching. I didn't even want. I click on episode 6, and I thought to myself, should I watch the recap? Nope. And zip, I just
you didn't even get caught up at all. Wow.
No. My thought was I want.
You're I'm not spending even an additional 20 seconds of time to have some more context.
I'm here for the twist, and if the twist is good enough, then it should be at least interesting on its own grounds. And also that was part of the experiment. Was you were going to watch all the episodes up to, and I was just going to watch this.
Yeah.
And so I was I want to strip it as much context as I can and just go into the show cold. And so I did. And it's, hard to argue against Colin Farrell. He's just fun to watch on screen. But I think all the episodes roughly 30-ish minutes.
Yeah, the first one is 50 minutes, but most of the episodes are 30 minutes or so.
Okay, and so this one is also so if you want to follow on our path and you just want to watch the twist and not just read on it in an article or see a YouTube clip, it's a pretty short amount of time to invest. And it seemed fine, David. Just with the lack of context, it seemed to match up with the reviews I'd seen. Was this is a perfectly fine.
It's a perfectly cromulent show.
Yeah, goes down easy. Colin Farrell is enjoyable to watch. Do you need to go out of your way to watch this show? No. Will you have a good time watching it? Yes. And then the question becomes, what does this moment in the show mean? And does that sort of add some jet fuel to your desire to want to watch it? And so it was fine. But what I was curious about it was because I was watching it with this mission in mind. It was like, all right, I'm watching it for a twist. Can I see the show tip its hand at all? Because I don't know in previous episodes how much, and you'll be able to inform this for me, like how much is it giving off an air of like, ooh, like I don't know. And so I'm looking for signs of this in the episode itself. And there is one, we can get to it, but like there's a moment with a gun and the way he deflects it that I was my first like, well, that didn't seem normal. So it looked fun. It matched up with my expectations, which was I don't feel bad that I haven't watched this show. I'm not sure if that's even changed based on the twist, as wild as it is. But I'm curious what you've made of it as you've actually watched the context and how that fits into. Was it tipping its hand about a mystery as it went along?
Definitely was tipping its hand about a mystery as it went along, for sure. Because the person he works with, John Sugar works with, is named Ruby, I believe. And there's all these questions about like what's Ruby's involvement with John Sugar's work, and what is this organization that they belong to, and like what is their mission, and why are they doing what they're doing. So there's all these questions about that. So the show is definitely like it doesn't completely come out of nowhere. Now I think the magnitude of the twist, which we will mention momentarily, does come a little bit out of nowhere.
Okay.
And I'm also going to say this, Patrick Klepek. So much of the conversation around the show has been around episode 6 online. They're like, something happens in episode 6. And I think people are actually, like, most of the time when that happens, that's annoying. But I think critics were actually appropriate to mention it because it's like, that happens so late in the show. The show's only 8 episodes. And something happens that, like, recontextualizes everything that came before in a huge, not in a small way. Not like, oh, that makes it deeper. It's like, oh, you're just watching a different show than you thought you were watching.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
So, okay, I did this thing where I recorded myself predicting what the twist would be at the end of episode 5.
Okay.
Now I have. Here's the thing: I did not talk this over with you, so, and I have not like prepped this audio, so I haven't like cut it down. It's very meandering. It's like 90 seconds long. But I'll play it for you. I'll play it into the microphone,
please,
and you can hear what I thought the twist might be. Okay, so here we go. Let's see.
All right, here's my best guess as to what the twist is in Sugar. Is we've watched the first 5 episodes. We're about to get to episode 6. I think that Sugar is hallucinating all this, or it's some kind of special program that he's in, you know, to yeah.
Very astute.
Some kind of training program or something like that.
Okay, all right, not bad.
In some kind of drug-induced thing of some kind.
I mean, drugs are involved.
You know, or it's like a drug thing, and it's to like train him to do better, to like understand humans and stuff. You know,
yep.
To train him to understand people more. You know, that's my guess.
Like a Born Identity, the 4th Born movie.
No. It's kind of like he's like an alien.
Oh,
or he's like an alien or somebody who can't comprehend human emotions or something. Like he's like a super genius of some kind.
Boom goes the dynamite. Called it, baby.
So how is that conveyed in the episodes? Like what groundwork is laid to even lead you to that as a theory in episodes 1 through 5?
Well, okay. So first of all, yeah, that is the twist. Episode 6 reveal happens at the very end of the episode. You find out John Sugar is an alien, and so are all of his other peeps. They're all aliens sent to Earth. Well, actually, you know, I won't even get into it because it doesn't. You don't even find out why until like episode 7 or 8. So I won't even get into why.
Okay.
But why was I able to predict that at the end of episode 5? Because the whole time, first of all, he really likes movies, and he seems to be, and that's why I thought he's not of this planet. But he seems to be using movies as a way to, like learn about humans. You know, so like he's like imitating behaviors that he has seen from movies, kind of, and so it's like, oh, this seems like something like somebody who's not a human would do, right?
Well, also so is the noir part of it the filming of the show or this character's attitude because they're watching noir films, so they're acting sort of out of
Right.
step with modern culture.
Yeah. I will say one thing that's really interesting is Fernando Morales is the director of many episodes of Sugar, also the director of this week's episode of The Sympathizer, which has like
Oh.
a notably different
Huh.
style than all the other episodes of Sympathizer we've seen. There's a lot of time jumps in the cutting of the like you'll be in a conversation and it will like cut and jump forward in time a lot, and that happens in Sugar and in The Sympathizer. Like dialogue happening while people are not talking, like it'll cut to like me and Patrick looking at each other intently, and you'll hear dialogue from like earlier in the scene. You know, that kind of almost Soderbergh-esque. A lot of handheld footage in both The Sympathizer and mostly Sugar and less The Sympathizer. But anyway, so yeah, Fernando Morales like gave a very interesting directorial spin to this show, I thought. But yeah, you find out John Sugar is an alien at the end of episode 6. You do get further explanation as to what is going on in episodes 7 and 8 that I will not get into. But I think that what I will say about episode 7 and 8 is they mostly continue the story from episodes 1 through 6.
So that was going to be my question, was like, am I gonna go back and watch episodes 1 through 5 that don't have I mean, they do have an alien, but it doesn't have, it's not capital. It's all being kept a secret. I'm not gonna watch that. But would I watch episodes 7 and 8 if this turns into a sci-fi show? Total aside, I have this ongoing joke that Apple will not approve a project for their streaming service unless it has a sci-fi bent. And it's almost as though they got 3/4 through production on Sugar. I was like, you know what? This noir stuff isn't working for me. Put an alien in there. Like, there's some guy with a big old cigar who was like, put an alien in there. And like, that has to happen. Like Severance is going to be some sort of alien box that they're going in. Like, the aliens are running this.
Severance is already sci-fi. Severance is already
I
sci-fi,
know.
so.
I'm just, yes, you're right. It's so effing funny that Apple TV Plus has us like, what do you mean? It's the least shocking thing to like. If it was on a different service, it'd be like, oh, that's weird. They don't really do a lot of sci-fi.
Yeah,
you do. What else do you do here but sci-fi is broadly how I feel about it.
That is very funny. I did think about you when it's like, oh, it turns out it's a sci-fi show, just like Patrick predicted.
Dark Matter is premiering in like I think this week as we're recording this. Another adaptation of a science fiction novel. So so you're saying it sort of picks back up with what there are people
I would say when you look at the show as a whole, right? Like if I put all the episodes of the show end to end, all the minutes of the show, I would say 90 to 95+% of the show is a noir show, right? And 5 to 10% of it deals with any alien sci-fi stuff. So
is it additive?
I actually think. What'd you say?
Is it additive? Like the fact that there's a sci-fi.
I will say, in my opinion, the show does not do a good job of justifying why it decided to make this character an alien. Because the thing is, when you make this character an alien, it is such a universe-altering event. Right? We just discussed this show, Baby Reindeer, that has an episode that recontextualizes everything that came before it, and that feels extremely additive and like, wow, that makes everything else make more sense, right? That's kind of what that episode does. This is a show that, but it's like, this is a development that is like, oh wow, literally world affairs, literally the history of the planet would be different if something like this, if we made first contact with aliens, if there was evidence of like alien civilizations, like it would alter the trajectory of world affairs. Presidents would need to get involved with this. And I'll just say very little of that is explored in any meaningful way. It really honestly feels like background dressing, or it feels like, I think by the end of the show, there's a bunch of references made, both explicitly and implicitly, to classic movies. I'm not even going to say what they are because I don't want to spoil anything. But suffice to say, like, you see shots of black and white movies that are referenced in this show, and many of those movies, like, the plots are relevant to what happens in the show. And some people have said this is like a Man Who Fell to Earth homage, and so maybe that's what it is. It's just like, hey, what if Sugar was a show where we just put in a bunch of homages to like movies we loved? Man Who Fell to Earth and Sunset Boulevard, and all the, and that's kind of what the show. It's like, okay, I guess, but that it ends up feeling extremely random, I would say, and disorienting. And by the end of the show, I'm not like, oh, that's why they made him an alien. Like, oh, it all makes sense. They couldn't have told the story any other way without him being an alien.
I mean, that was my like,
Absolutely not. Absolutely
in some
not.
ways, does it feel as though, like, if they removed the alien part and it was just a story about this sort of weird noir guy that was like weirdly
It would have been
detached.
fine. It would have been fine.
But would it have been good?
One could argue good.
Okay.
Yeah. It's like, hey, this is a cool noir story, because the thing is, we don't see many noir stories.
No,
right?
no.
So just by dint of the fact it's got the voiceover and the detective with the heart of gold and like red herrings about who's actually the killer, like it's delivering us noir. There's very few of them out there. So by dint of just being a noir, it already has some inherent value.
Gotcha.
Right? And it's decently executed. It's not like, oh wow, the execution is horrible on this. Like, it's solidly executed noir. Takes this massive twist, like essentially the story then diverges into two separate components. There's dealing with the twist, and then there's like finishing up the noir story that was begun in the first 6 episodes. That's kind of where the show goes from here. And it does both of those things. And it's like, really? I feel like you could have just stuck with one of those. Like you could have focused your attention on just making one of those good. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I was reading an interview with,
and I think that, to be clear, I think they both end up being bad. Like that's.
Oh, okay. Well, I
think they both end up being bad. Yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
They part of what makes this so wild, why the two of us wanted to even revisit this or visit it for the first time in any capacity, was a twist maybe comes all the way at the end or right in the beginning, but like this was such an awkward, interesting spot for it to appear that it was like, like it's just such an oddity. Like it seems worth you and I checking it out in some capacity just to contextualize it, to think about it. But the showrunner mentioned in an interview that, of course, it was originally in the pilot, like the spot you would imagine this would be, like the exact shot composition where he's tired, going up to a mirror is like, I just need a break from all of this. And then it's revealed that he looks like he's like a Vision from the Marvel universe, like Vision adjacent looking kind of alien thing going on. And do you think the show would, like, it sounds like what you're saying is, while I respect the audaciousness to keep it this deep into the show, that it would have been a fundamentally more interesting show if those shades were explicit as opposed to suggested or gestured at in the first 5 episodes, or kept it all the way to the end, right? Like if you wanted to, I feel like the moment they chose was, maybe there was a way to wrap it up better. But it seems like either keep this all the way to the freaking end where it's like, I just watched this classic throwback kind of off-kilter noir story, and then the final shot is like, and he was an alien the whole time, or you front load it, and then you get to contextualize this detached, individual that is attempting to put on the suit of a human and can't quite nail it. Like, those are interesting, and it seems like the path it chose is an awkward fit. And
I think that's really well put. Yeah. And great points. And I think it's less of a, hey, let's just reveal this in the first episode, and more that by not revealing it in the first episode, you cannot explore what that means, right? What you can have is a bunch of oblique references to the fact that they're alien, but you can't be like, what are the implications of this? Like, what does this mean? That, and you only then now have 2 episodes to do that in. And I don't think the show does a particularly good job. It just feels like, hey, they just expect you to kind of take it as like given, and hey, we're moving on to the next thing. That's my perception. And I think the resolution to the story, the sort of main storyline of the disappearance of Jonathan Siegel's granddaughter, is extremely unsatisfying. That's what I would describe. And the resolution of the alien stuff is like okay, but it's kind of like, why the show should have been kind of laying the track for both of these resolutions in a good way throughout the whole, and by saving it for episode 6, it isn't able to do that. It's not able to like explore
because
it
it's
in a good way.
explicitly a twist, right?
Yes,
Like
yes.
you're maintaining an illusion. You mentioned that we celebrated Baby Reindeer for keeping it as an episode that recontextualizes what came before. And I went to pains in our discussion about that too. It is a twist, but like a twist implies a certain level of kind of magician work. The show is going through great pains to like the main character understands the stakes and the context. The audience doesn't, because they're choosing as filmmakers to not show you. It sounds like they just sort of put their hands behind their back, and like essentially from a storytelling perspective, they couldn't lay the groundwork for the right resolution, because to do any of that would be to make the alien of it all too obvious.
I agree completely with everything you said. Now, that being said, some people are like, I knew what the twist was already. Like it was extremely obvious to me right from the start. I don't think that represents most opinions. No. I'm also going to say, I think it was a disastrous decision to release this week to week. That's something that Apple TV does, which I think in general is good, but releasing it week to week means people feel like they're watching one show, and then they find out maybe they're watching another show in episode 6. And I guess I'm here to tell you, actually, it's kind of the same show throughout pretty much the whole show, with like a little bit of added like spice to it, basically. A little extra element you didn't see coming, but it's still kind of fundamentally the same show. And also that show ends badly, in my opinion. So I was not a fan of the show. And my wife actually got like pretty angry when we got to the end, because she's like, I can't believe we spent our time on that. And I'm going to tell you that she would have been even more pissed if we'd been watching this week to week. Like we binged it all in one day. But she like, if we were watching week to week and been like, oh, I wonder where the mystery is going next, and then got to this episode, it would be crushing. I think it would be like I'd be really unhappy with it. So even more unhappy with it than I am right now.
Well, it's interesting. I think one reason why people might have been able to get tipped off is, I think from the start, if you looked up the show in Apple TV Plus, it was listed under genre as sci-fi, which betrays. I believe that's true. We should double check it, but I saw that noted by somebody, was like, because you can't, like it does have an alien. Like, can they update the genre when this episode 6 drop? We should double check it. But like, that is like one of those things.
No, it says drama. When I see it right now on Apple TV, it says drama. Okay.
So, all right. So maybe that person was mistaken. But I was like, well, that would tip some people.
He was just thinking of Apple TV Plus as the sci-fi streaming.
As the sci-fi, yeah.
That's what
I know that sci-fi isn't a TV channel anymore, but the spirit lives on beautifully in Apple TV Plus.
Exactly.
I guess the last question I'd ask you is, you don't think it wraps up either the alien part or the noir or the kind of central crime or investigation particularly well. Does it leave you any dangling threads that you would like, okay, everything's on the table now, like there's no tricks like being held back by the show in terms of what I'm watching? Does that leave you any interest in a season 2 that was like, hey, now we know who this character is, the world we're in? Does that set up a more fascinating, expansive season 2, which Apple loves? Greenlight, like even for shows that seem broadly unwatched and untalked about, to their credit, like relative to other streamers, like will often give shows at least a second season to explore themselves.
Right. So I will say I was unsatisfied by the ending. That doesn't mean there was not a resolution, but I don't really want to say anything more. I'll just leave it vague and say that I was unsatisfied. But like the main mystery, I feel like they tried to resolve it in the way that they saw fit. I didn't appreciate particularly the approach they took. As for season 2, there are threads put in there for what a season 2 might be. But it's not a show that I would have any interest in. Like, it's
gotcha. Okay.
I think after everything that happened, after all we've been through with season 1.
See, I was shielded from season 1, and so if you were to tell me from the jump that this was like a Colin Farrell alien detective show, like fuck yeah, I'm gonna watch.
Right.
Like I would. So I know that you're soured on a potential season 2 because season 1 went awry for you. Me only having watched the twist, if I could just hold out till a potential season 2 and just watch that more honest version of the show, I don't know if that show will be good, but I have to admit that I'm more compelled by the pitch than I was by the original one.
Yeah, another reason why they should not have held back the twist like they did.
Yeah.
Because they would have hooked Patrick Klepek right away.
Yeah. Right away. I'm here for big budget, if irresponsible levels of sci-fi.
Yeah. All that's levels of sci-fi that may negatively impact the company bottom line. You need to sell about like 500 or 500,000 iPads to fund.
I know people need to keep buying those iPhones so Apple can, like, someone like spilled coffee on like the approval like dial, and it's like we keep trying to turn off sci-fi, but like the machine is broken and it just will only approve sci-fi scripts.
So I did not like the twist. I did not like the show in general. Given what happens with the twist and what happens afterwards. By the time you're listening to this, episode 7, I believe, will also be available. I am curious what people think about Sugar on Apple TV Plus. Let us know at decodingtv@gmail.com. Patrick Klepek, thanks for participating in this really weird exercise. I appreciate you being a good sport about it. Hey everyone, David Chen here. Thank you so much for watching that video from Decoding TV. If you want to get an audio version of the show, all you got to do is go to podcast.decodingtv.com. And if you want to support what we do, get ad-free episodes of the podcast and also bonus episodes of the podcast, go to decodingtv.com and become a paid member. Of course, you can also like and subscribe for more. We appreciate it. Thanks. See you later.